Arsenal just beaten Liverpool 3-2. They're top of the Premier League, absolutely flying. They were brilliant in this game. This is what they looked like, a lovely 4-3-3. I'm going to show you how they beat Liverpool. This was Liverpool. Now, they've changed their tactics recently. Their system has changed to more of a 4-2-3-1. It looks very different in different phases of play, so does Arsenal's. There are clear things that Mikel Arteta had identified as weaknesses in the Liverpool team that other teams have also done, and strengths that Arsenal are trying to play to as well. They're just great. A lot of it comes down to intensity, determination, drive, energy, but tactically it's very interesting to me. And so what we saw was this 4-3-3. Now, the first thing that's interesting to me is the left back was Tomiyasu. Now, Tomiyasu can play left back. He's a right back usually. He's also a centre back. But the key thing is that he is right-footed. So when you play against someone who's left-footed like Salah, who always comes inside like this, you've got a much stronger, you maybe even have an advantage, because when Salah comes from his left foot, there's a stronger right foot to stop him, which forces Salah wide because he's not going to go past him that way. So that's the thinking behind having Tomiyasu rather than Kieran Tierney. I think that's the idea there. It also gives you a bit of height for set pieces when you're defending, back four like this. These guys are all centre backs, so that's very useful. Now we know that in build-up, we like to have Ben White inside sometimes, Partey, and maybe like this, like a 3 with a 2 at the back. But in this game, what Arsenal were doing an awful lot was getting a 6th man forward. So they attack, most teams attack with a 5. What Arsenal are often doing, one man here, Odegaard floating about, Xhaka would be left side actually, like this. And Saka would be here maybe, and then you've got Ben White joining in. So they're often getting a front 6, an overload a lot of the time. You'll notice it quite often, and then they try and control the pitch with Partey a bit deeper, Tomiyasu and Gabriel and Saliba. So this is what they're trying to do. Now, there's a few other things that are key here, and it's related to how Liverpool are going to play. So Liverpool's big problems have been leaving gaps between the full-back and the centre-back like this. This is what they do. So in build-up, they can try and get the ball from, maybe Alisson can, if they're trying to play short and they're being pressed really well, like Arsenal were pressing really well. It means that the goalkeeper can play long and go an out ball to this full-back here. But what they were doing is they weren't having Saka tight to Tsimikas as part of the press, they had him playing in behind him, and that meant that Ben White was being aggressive and pushing up on Tsimikas. So Diaz was basically 1v1 with Diaz, then Gabriel would be 1v1 with like Nunez, Partey with Jota, and Saka would be pushing up to get tight to Henderson, or Thiago would be here like next to Odegaard, Tomiyasu and Salah. So it's very aggressive, like a 1v1 at the back, but it means that because Liverpool are not playing Alexander-Arnold wide here anymore, they're playing him deep like this. They're trying to keep him closer to their centre-back, so it becomes more of a 3 in build-up. So you have a 3 and a 2. So Henderson, Thiago, or this double pivot, you want to call them that, but they're there with a 3 behind them. It's quite common now to see that. But Arsenal were just so aggressive and they pushed them really high. But early on in the game, you saw all these things coming into play and how they're going to focus on this left side like lots of teams do. So Liverpool go forward, they attack, and their narrow front 4 comes into play. So you get Nunez, Salah, they're always making runs in and out. So this might go here, he might go here. But you get this front 4, and they leave a lot of depth between the front 4 and the back. So Arsenal looking a bit like this. Saka goes on the outside of Tsimikas, who makes this forward position that he normally does. He wants to get tight, because at the moment Liverpool are attacking with a front 4, and the 5th is Tsimikas, joining in like this. Then Thiago and Henderson try and press. That's what they do. They win the second balls. But that's what their shape is. Because Saka's in behind, is waiting, it means that when the ball is turned over, and the ball is here, and Saliba is brilliant, he evades, I think, a couple of challenges, stays composed, takes his time on the ball, be able to go past them, and that's how they start the move. So in the past, you might get a defender who's not as good as Saliba punting it forward, there's no goal. Because Saliba stays nice and calm, evades the pressure, gets past one, he plays in the ball forward. I think it might be Ben White who takes the ball, but then this is Saka's positioning wide, which means that the ball can come out to him, and Tsimikas is out of the game. Suddenly Liverpool in real trouble, they have to get back, and the back 3 is Van Dijk, Matip, and Alexander-Arnold. This is what they look like, trying to come back here. Now Saka comes inside, we know he's going to do that, Ben White sets off, that's what he's going to do. And what they do is they create this nice little diamond. You got width and depth, here's your diamond. So Liverpool have been exploited for the gap between the left back and the full back. They're coming back, Saka comes inside, plays the ball into Odegaard, who is brilliant in these situations when he's surrounded. Liverpool keep coming, Jesus is over here. But what the danger is really is Martinelli on the overlap. You've got Xhaka coming over this left side, who's constantly overlapping on this left side here. And what happens is then Alexander-Arnold, classic bit of poor defending from him, really not playing very well at the moment, defensively 1v1. He then gets his body shape all wrong. He stands flat. You should always be kind of side on, so you can push and go different ways. You see Matip do it. He's running side on, so he's facing this way as he goes this way. Then when he has to turn, he's back then facing the other way. So he's always at an angle to where he's going, so he can push off his stronger leg and get to him. Alexander-Arnold gets caught flat. So by the time that Arsenal get to this position here, Odegaard can thread the ball through because he can't push off quick enough to get to it. Martinelli can get in behind, brilliant pass, scores. That's how they score. I'll show you with the pictures from the actual game. The ball is turned over, Saliba keeps nice and calm. Here's Saka in the space that they found where Tsimikas would be, and this is the back three now that Liverpool have formed. Straight away, you've got an overlap here. So you've got Martinelli forming part of this diamond, then you've got Xhaka who's going to try and get on the overlap as well, or underlap depending on the situation. They come inside to Odegaard, and here's Alexander-Arnold making his mistake. So he's trying to cover for two. Arsenal are targeting and making sure they've got an overlap here, so he doesn't know what to do. He really struggles with this. It's hard when you've got an overload. But you get 4v1 basically in this situation. Odegaard threads it through, brilliant pass. Alexander-Arnold can't get enough of a bounce to stop it. Ball goes through, and that's how Martinelli scores the first goal. And that's Arsenal off to a flying start. The press, the energy, the crowd's up. It's really exciting. It's a really good game to watch. Really enjoying it. It's a good time to be alive. And then Liverpool slowly get more control of the game, and they do it by getting tighter, so not leaving this much space between the lines, basically. So you got Alexander-Arnold push much higher up the Matip. So now you're reducing the depth from being like far too deep when you're caught to much tighter, so that when you're trying to break, you can't because you're too squeezed up. It sounds simple, but it's you only be compact out of possession and will be wide in possession. It's what Liverpool want to do, but Liverpool play a bit less wide, they play narrower than a lot of teams because they want to try and counter press, but their counter press isn't really working just now. They're not really very good. And Salah just couldn't really get on the ball. He's being kept tight by Tomiyasu, but something else that Arsenal were doing was having Martinelli and Odegaard and Jesus and Saka press so heavily, so constantly, that what was happening was that Alexander-Arnold couldn't keep the ball. Martinelli was straight at him, and then the ball would have to go backwards. So they couldn't get the ball up this right side to Salah, and they're basically teaming up the two and the three here. It's Tomiyasu, Xhaka, and Martinelli versus these two. Salah just couldn't get in the game. And where Salah is having fewer touches per game this season, it's around about 6 touches fewer per 90 on average. He normally gets about, well, last season I think he was around about 10 touches per game. I have the actual numbers just on screen now for you. But this is his touches in the match. This is all match. Kickoff, useful. Here he is on the right-hand side, 1 touch in the box. They kept him locked down, and it's to do, I think, with the really, really incredibly well performed press that Arsenal playing high up the pitch. Now, for the equaliser, Liverpool scores a combination of this narrow front four, interchanging positions, but also Thiago just moving constantly. He moves to the left side, to the right. It's a throw-in. Liverpool are really good at throw-ins, by the way. It's the thing to watch out for. Spend a lot of time on them. Alexander-Arnold throws it to Thiago. Martinelli's not sure where to go to Alexander-Arnold or not. He gets stuck. Then Thiago just volleys it back to Alexander-Arnold, who takes a touch and then pings this ball over the top. Look, Arsenal playing a high line. Gabriel gets back, takes a poor touch. Nunez then runs inside to out with the ball, steals it off Gabriel, and then you've got Diaz arriving in the middle to score the goal. It's just really good movement and confusing the Arsenal backline, because what they were often doing was that the 2 central strikers, Jota and Nunez mostly, would be swapping positions and dragging the defenders out of the way. So you want to try and keep these two exactly in their positions here, exactly like this, as a 2. So if Nunez goes this way, he's going to drag Gabriel a bit, and then Jota might go this way, and that's going to drag Saliba, and then they get caught flat, which is bad. You don't do that ever, and that's sometimes when Arsenal's centre-backs are quite out of position. But Gabriel, a bit of a weird game today, not great. That's how they equalised. Liverpool had a lot of control of the ball, just with having Thiago and Henderson nice and close to these guys, and really just working the pitch like that. But then what happens later on in the game is Arsenal score a goal right at the end of the half. They're basically very good at the very start of the half and very good at the very end of it. And it's a real quick attack, and it's more bad defending from Alexander-Arnold. So it starts with a Liverpool free kick. The ball is cleared. Arsenal have a back 7 or something like that in a row. They clear it and they break quickly, and they're so quick. Martinelli was amazing in this game. Takes in Henderson for pace here. Now you see the back 3 has become Alexander-Arnold in the middle. He stays back for second balls. If they're playing a free kick and the ball's kicked back out, he can then deliver it back into the box. That's why he stays deep. So he's furthest back here with Henderson, and I think that's Tsimikas running back. So there's a 3 coming back here, and Arsenal straight away so quick to get on the ball. Martinelli's taking on Henderson here. Now the error that Alexander-Arnold makes is he's right back. He knows that Martinelli's very likely, because he's done it all games, takes him on the outside and goes this way. So he starts to make a run across here, but he is the central centre-back. He has to hold this position to make sure that they have this back 3, otherwise it's going to be really bad. And so what he does is he anticipates that Martinelli's going this way, and he closes the gap. And that's not a terrible decision. He's trying to close it, but by doing that, it makes it so easy for Martinelli to just change direction. He's got a great sense of balance turns, these two guys are completely taken out of the game, and then what happens is Martinelli can just put the ball in the box, and you've got 3 versus 1 at the back. Alexander-Arnold has to be in the middle to try and block the pass if it comes in here. It should be that Henderson's trying to drive him wide, and Alexander-Arnold stays here, so he does come inside, he can then block him. Because then what happens is he puts the ball into the box, and Gabriel does this really clever little jump. He jumps over the ball, so it goes straight through to Saka to score. That's really good bit of skill there from Gabriel, good awareness to know that Saka is there. And that's how Arsenal take the lead. Liverpool will come back into it in the second half. A really well-taken goal from Firmino, and it's another example of this movement confusing players. Nunez goes like this, and he's going to drag Gabriel slightly over, and then Firmino might go this way, which drags Saliba. Then they get caught flat, and the ball goes through. And that's kind of how Liverpool score their goals. It's really well taken. But then Arsenal, what they've done in the second half is change the shape ever so slightly to stop the way that Liverpool are building from the back, because Thiago and Henderson have too much control of the game against the midfield 3. It shouldn't happen. So what they do, well, Alexander-Arnold's taken off at half-time. I think that's because he's playing very badly. He needs to have a little break maybe. Here comes on Joe Gomez, right? So he's a centre-back, also a right-back. Did okay. But he plays here now. So what Arsenal were doing in the second half is Jesus was leading the press still, but rather than having the 4-2-3-1 shape behind him for the press like this, they instead changed it to a 4-1-4-1. So Partey sat at the base, Xhaka's tight to Henderson, Odegaard's tight to Thiago, Martinelli's staying on here and Gomez, Xhaka's still staying in this space when Tsimikas goes because Ben White's tight to him. So then suddenly Liverpool find it much more difficult to try and play through these guys because they're getting tight to them, so that stops them having total control of the midfield in the second half. It's one little tactical change that they make. Now, what happens later on in the game as Liverpool start to get back into it naturally, Arsenal score their penalty, is that another tactical change Arteta goes for is to go for a back 5. So Tierney comes on, it's to do with Liverpool changes that they made. Elliott had come on for Jota, Thiago was still there, Fabinho had come on, Henderson was playing at right forward rather than Salah. Salah couldn't get in the game, as we know. Gomez is on for Alexander-Arnold. But the idea is that Liverpool are trying to get more chances moved down the wide parts of the pitch. And so to stop being outnumbered, they had Martinelli helping out as a wing back at times, so they would form like a real back 5, even a 6 at times. So they have a 6 going forward and a 6 at the back. But then that meant that Liverpool were outnumbered. So when they were pressing high up the pitch, you had Xhaka, Martinelli and Tierney. So you had a 3v2 with these guys here. So they're still struggling to get the ball forward into their forwards, and Arsenal were able to get a bit more of control of the game. So I would say in general, an absolute tactical win from Mikel Arteta in this game. Liverpool tactically beaten, I would say, but also they just don't have that drive, that intensity that they're used to. They're not doing any of the same things they used to. They're pressing less. They're not getting the ball forward as quickly. There are moments when they're okay, but the problem is that these gaps that people keep exploiting only appear like semi-regularly. They happen now and again, but teams are exploiting them because they know exactly when and where they're going to happen. And that's a big problem Jurgen Klopp has to address. With a bunch of players who just don't seem to be running with the same intensity they once were. It's quite difficult. They're not playing well. It'll probably be fine in the end. But Arsenal looked brilliant, really well deserved, top of the league. There you go. That's Arsenal versus Liverpool. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please do subscribe so we can grow the channel. That'd be lovely. And have a nice time. Just have a nice time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Ralph Rangnick to Manchester United story broke, where a team of journalists have provided unrivaled coverage of Newcastle United's new ownership, and where dedicated writers cover every Premier League team no matter their place in the table. And you can try it free now for 30 days.